What's going on, Godzirra Nation? This is Arghgodzirra. We are back with another round of AFL tips and predictions. Thank you for joining me as always. Before we get on to round 9, it's time to reflect on round 8. And there was a lot of us that had some solid tipping come out of this round. I myself had 7 out of 9. The only 2 incorrect tips I had was my boys getting belted by Geelong, which I did not see coming, and North Melbourne falling to Collingwood, which was probably wishful thinking in the end, considering North Melbourne's on the bottom of the ladder. But with the way North played against Melbourne, I thought they'd be a little bit more competitive this week against Collingwood, and I was proven wrong. That was a quick reflection. Let's have a look, however, because there were 2 teams this week that tipped 9 out of 9. The first of which, Marcus 6V, and the second of which was my old man, again. Last week had the most correct tips, this week has the most correct tips. So congratulations to the 2 of you for tipping 9 out of 9, a perfect round. Congratulations to Liam and Vince holding up equal first place on top of the ladder. And myself, I'm still squandering around 29th position. I don't know what the hell just happened to the screen then. I think there's some low-key possession going on in my house right now.
Boo, I'm a ghost!
But now that we've reflected quickly over the week that was, let's have a look at the week that will be. Round 9. Friday night, Marvel Stadium, that's where we kick things off. St Kilda taking on Geelong. Incredibly hard to back against Geelong, especially after what they did to Richmond last week. I'm thinking 35 points is not out of the realm of possibility here. St Kilda have been playing a little bit more consistent of a brand of football, but I still argue St Kilda fans would be upset with where they're situated right now, because as I mentioned in the previous video, St Kilda have either been getting absolutely belted or just falling over the line. Something's got to give eventually, but I think Geelong, after what they showed against the premier team in Richmond, regardless of the fact that Melbourne's on top, Richmond is still defending premiers, I think Geelong are going to get it done quite comfortably Friday night. Saturday kicks off at SCG with Sydney taking on Collingwood. I am backing Sydney. Even though I tipped Melbourne last week, I was actually finding myself barracking for Sydney in the end, wanting to see them get up and beat Melbourne, because I think they put in a very spirited performance. Collingwood got the job done, but they got the job done against North Melbourne, a team that has not won any games at all this year, a team that has something like 78 as their percentage overall, so it's not nothing to be bragged about really. They're talking about how Jordan De Goey got off the chain and kicked 6. Let's not forget Josh Bruce kicked 10, and Josh Bruce at best is a C grade key forward. That's just my personal opinion. However, I think Sydney should get back into the winner's circle this weekend quite comfortably as well. I'm probably going to back by about 3 or 4 goals, especially in front of the home crowd. This next game is a little bit harder for me to predict. We're going down to Tasmania. We've got the 2 teams that play in Tasmania, in Hawthorn and North Melbourne. And while I tipped North Melbourne last week and they didn't get the job done, part of me feels like they could potentially get up this week against Hawthorn. There is reasoning for it. I feel in the midfield, North Melbourne have a more potent and well-rounded setup. In the way that I'm not knocking Ben McAvoy, but I think Goldstein has him covered ruck-wise. The likes of Jai Simpkin, Ben Cunnington in the middle, I think they're going to get a lot of contested clearance ball. Then you move it forward, and when you compare the 2 forward lines, Jack Gunston, I think, is going to be out with injury, so now they're going to be heavily reliant on young Kajiski to get the job done. Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, you got Cam Zurhaar, you've got the Suvlaki up the other end. So North Melbourne, when they transition the ball from midfield to forward line, they have targets to hit up. Hawthorn are relying on the crumbing of Luke Bruce to hit those packs and get scores on board. Defensively, I'd probably have North Melbourne ahead of Hawthorn's defence. And some of you would probably argue that because North Melbourne have been getting belted, but I think the combined effort of Ben Mackay, Jack Zeeble, Aidan Bonner, when he has been back there, they've been getting a lot of free-flowing ball, whereas probably Hardwick and Jayath have been the most consistent in Hawthorn's defence. Sam Frost has been a little bit shaky with his disposal out of there. I'm going to go Hawthorn for the time being, but I really am interested to see the teams announced ahead of time to get my decision made. That's why I think it's good that they're going to bring it back to Thursday night announcements. That way we can get our tips locked in ahead of time, knowing who's going to be playing. At Metricon, Saturday afternoon. I've gone prematurely all the way down again. Metricon, Saturday afternoon. Brisbane taking on the Gold Coast. We're going to go Brisbane. What they did last week to Fremantle, what they did the week before to Port Adelaide, they're really starting to find some form. 4 in a row for the Lions, and they've been doing it without Lachie Neale. That's the scary factor. I think even though Gold Coast have been putting some solid performances together, they're going to hit a brick wall against Brisbane. That's not to discredit what the Gold Coast have been doing. I just rate Brisbane this year as a better team overall. But the Gold Coast could upset here, and I think it would be huge if they did, especially for their momentum moving forward, looking to play finals for the first time. I think it'd be huge for the club. I just feel that Brisbane are going to get the job done. Marvel Stadium, Saturday night, Richmond taking on GWS. Now, this is on the back of Shane Edwards not going to be in our team for about 4 or 5 weeks with a medial strain in his ankle. It's been made public knowledge that Shai Bolton has fractured his wrist in a nightclub incident with Daniel Rioli. So, arguably, our best on ground the last 3 weeks has been Shai Bolton, and we now lose his input. We lose Shane Edwards' magic out of the middle. Our midfield has been destroyed. No Trent Cotchin, no Dion Prestia, no Kane Lambert, no Shane Edwards, no Shai Bolton. We do get Dylan Grimes back this week. And I feel with a complete back 6 in Grimes, Vlosten, Asprey, Hooley and Short, we can really launch a back to front attack. We're going to need the youngsters to step up in the middle more now than ever before. I think Richmond can get the job done. I am going to back them because I need to keep faith in my boys being able to bounce back. But do not be surprised if GWS come down and get the job done against Richmond. And if you look at Sportsbet odds at $2.58, they're a good team to jump on this week to cause a bit of an upset. I don't see it as an upset given Richmond has all those outs. It opens the door for GWS to do a lot of damage. But I'm backing in our system. I think if the system is in place, regardless of personnel missing, the system still should hold strong. My personal opinion, I could be completely wrong, but I'm backing the Tigers to get it done. And Saturday rounds out at Adelaide Oval, which with a game that I think is going to be game of the round. Port Adelaide taking on the Western Bulldogs. I think the Bulldogs overall have been the better team. Their system that they've got in place is a hell of a lot better. Their players, I think, are rated at a higher calibre, especially their midfield. I think Port Adelaide's defence is going to run rampant over the Bulldogs' forward line. I'm going to back Port Adelaide here. Port Adelaide in Adelaide is always a tough ask, no matter which team you support. But I feel when you look around the ground and you compare the Bulldogs and Port Adelaide, Bulldogs are well on top in the midfield game, 100%. The forward lines, I would argue Port Adelaide are just ahead. Defence, 100% Port Adelaide are going to shit all over them. And players like Alia are going to get a lot of intercept marks and they're going to be able to launch from that back half. I think that's what's going to set up the big win here for Port Adelaide. I'm thinking 4 or 5 goals. Bulldogs here If they can defeat Port Adelaide in Adelaide, I give them every chance to win this year's premiership, because they need to start pulling off wins and pulling off the ones that they are backs against the wall should not win. If they can start racking those up, I think they'll start putting doubt in other people's heads. But for me this week, I think Port Adelaide get it done. Rounding out with 3 games on Sunday, the first of which I've gone prematurely again. Essendon taking on Fremantle at Marvel Stadium. I feel these two teams are evenly matched, personnel-wise, and where they are on the ladder. Both are vying to play finals this year. Both, I don't think, are out of the realm of finals at this point in time. We're still very early on. Fremantle has won 4 games. Essendon have won 2 games. So they're still thereabouts. Fremantle are tied for 8th spot. Essendon looking to stay in the hunt. Oh, this is a hard one because Essendon should get the job done. I believe Jake Stringer is now out, so it puts their forward line under a bit of pressure, because Jake Stringer, since coming back in, has been pretty big for their forward line. I'm going to go Essendon for the time being. I might swap to Fremantle. I need to see some team announcements for this game, because I think replacing some of the injured Essendon players, I want to see who comes in. Could potentially swap, but for now we're locking in Essendon. At the MCG, going with Melbourne. How can you not? Carlton, if they get up, I would be so happy if they did. Carlton being the team to upset Melbourne, especially for all my Carlton supporting fans, supporters, subscribers at home. I think you'd all love to see Melbourne defeated by your team. I just think they get it done here. They're too good. They're playing... It's funny, and you probably have a go at me for saying it, but I think they're playing a Richmond brand. Their defensive half are now working off of intercept game, which is how Richmond developed their back half. They're now running the handball game a hell of a lot more, which is something that Richmond really started pushing in their first premiership year. And it's working. It's getting the job done. They're going to be hard to beat. And the week rounds out with West Coast defeating Adelaide at Optus Stadium. West Coast, I don't know how they had a line of only 10.5 points against Hawthorn. I think that was ridiculous. So if anybody got them at the line, good job. West Coast here, 40 points. 40 plus points. Back at home, this is where they'll get the damage done. A lot of people are writing West Coast off, but they need to realise from now until the end of the year, almost every second game they play is going to be at home, and then they have a string where they don't leave. This is where West Coast are going to do the most damage. They defend the nest incredibly hard. They're going to be hard to beat there, and I don't think Adelaide are going to be the team to get it done. So having a look over my tips this week, fingers crossed we can get a perfect week this week. Geelong, Sydney, Hawthorn, Brisbane, Richmond, Port Adelaide, Essendon, Melbourne, and the West Coast Eagles are the teams I go for. The gauntlet this week, I have already locked in my team. I went for Sydney over Collingwood as my gauntlet selection, because I'm starting to run thin on the top tier teams, and I want to start getting the middle of the board out of the way in games where I think they are going to get over the line. But that's it for the video. Thank you for joining me again. Hopefully you guys get some... But that's it for the video. Thank you for joining me again this week. If you could be so kind as to leave a like on the video, it'd be hugely appreciated. There is going to be some new AFL-based content coming to the channel very soon. So if you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed and have notifications enabled by hitting the subscribe button and the bell icon down there. So when that content does come out, you guys get notified. It's something I've never done before, but something I'm incredibly keen to start doing, just to get more actively involved with the AFL fans and supporters that have subscribed to my channel and come here for AFL content. But that's it from me, guys. I'm out of here. Good luck to your teams this weekend, and as always, I will catch you guys next time.
Continue.